have the honor of hearing and learning from these four beautiful Jewish souls and contributors to On Being Jewish Now, Reflections from Authors and Advocates. We are here with Lisa Barr, DARA LEVAN, KEREN BLANKFELD, and Rochelle Weinstein.
Because this book, On Being Jewish Now, edited by Zibby Owens, featuring 75 essays by Jewish authors, podcasters, and influencers, matters. This book matters. We are all, and then I'm going to give it over to Rochelle, we are all busy and we're all on tour with various genres, different genres of books. And this has been our coming together, our answer to the 400% surge of anti-Semitism worldwide, and our answer to October 7th. We needed to do something, and that something was this book. So thank you for being here.
So many of you may have heard that Zibby Owens was supposed to be here and moderating that panel, so I just wanted to address that Zibby had something come up and couldn't be here, so we were fortunate enough to get Lisa, who lives in Del Rey, to come and take over. So I want to say thank you to Lisa, because this is what we do for each other. And if you know Zibby, and Zibby was really upset not to be here, and she is such a force in the business, and what she has done for the Jewish community, she's not afraid to put her voice out there, and she has just been a champion for Jewish voices. So I just want to say also an extra applause for Zibby, who can't be here. So we'll get right to it. There has been a lot of anti-Semitism in the book world, but precisely in the book world. How has it impacted you personally and through your work? So, Dara, do you want to start?
Thank you. Is this on, first of all?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for being here. I echo everything that Lisa just said. Just this turnout is so reflective of why this is so important. And as far as the book world, my protagonist is Jewish. It's set in Miami, where I'm from and where we all are right now. And she's Jewish as well. And honestly, I wrote this novel, I drafted it a few years ago. It was important, but not as important as after October 7th, I used to consider myself an American Jewish woman. Post October 7th, I'm a Jewish American woman. So in terms of publishing, it hasn't impacted me directly. It's impacted me, almost feels like from my ancestry. It's impacted me through all of our shared stories. It's impacted me through empathy and having not only a ton of family in Israel, but it doesn't matter, it's happening in our backyard. So I don't know if I really answered that question. I went a bit off the rails, but I'd rather hear from everyone else.
KEREN.
Yeah, I wrote a book that came out in January, Lovers in Auschwitz, and the way it's impacted me is I never realized that being Jewish and writing about Auschwitz would become a political, anything political. So that was very surprising to me. I have two young boys, and I never thought that I'd be nervous about them singing a Hebrew song as we walk down our neighborhood in Brooklyn, and it's something that I've thought about, and it's made me nervous to have them sing in Hebrew. So things that I had never considered suddenly have become an issue, and that having this book has made me connect with the community and see that I'm not alone.
So this is pretty emotional. So I've been on tour with this book, The Goddess of Warsaw, and the background of the book is the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. So it has been, for me, so eerily relevant that I'm actually looking to my character, who's a very fierce resistance fighter, for inspiration and to help me personally through things. So I'm the daughter of a Holocaust survivor. I'm very pro-Israel, active on social media, and I write World War II historical thrillers. So I have been fodder for the haters, and we'll talk about the blacklists. Rochelle can address that, but from just to give you an idea of how tough it is in the book world for Jewish authors, right after October 7th, I have another book called Woman on Fire, and this is not a brag. It's just to give you a point of comparison. I had all 4- and 5-star reviews. Right from October 8th onward, I had 450 1-star reviews, which is called review bombing. So that is what has been happening. Jewish authors are being, incessantly review bombed. We've been dealing with blacklists, and Rochelle, you could talk more about that because we've been on some of the same lists together. And I've personally had violence and cancellations, and really from the beginning, I would receive at least 50 pro-Hamas activists telling me and shellacking my social media with die Jew and your daughters should be raped, and it was non-stop. And so I think what it comes down to is we had a choice. We could hide, we could cower, or we could fight back. And so I think this book, On Being Jewish Now, is one of the many ways we've been fighting back. And it's not easy. It's not easy. I'm sure all of us would rather be talking about our books that we're on tour with, but this is where we are. And so I'm very proud to have a home called On Being Jewish Now, that I can be part of a tribe of women to help us get through this very difficult period right now.
I write fiction novels. Sometimes there's romance, something about family dynamics. Sometimes there's Jewish characters, sometimes there's not. I released a book on October 17th, 10 days after the war. And it was a really difficult and disturbing time because I think I got an email, maybe from you. There was actually a Google spreadsheet that was going around. Someone found it on Twitter and they said, do you know that you're on this list? And I'm like, what list? Now, mind you, just let me circle back for a second. On October 7th, I put a Israeli flag in my feed, and I wasn't wishing harm upon anybody in the world. I just put the Israeli flag in my feed. And this color-coded Excel spreadsheet had the worst crime was red. I was red because I put an Israeli flag in my feed. And there were other offenses that was color-coded red, orange, green, blue, yellow, whatever it was. And it was titled, Is Your Favorite Author a Zionist? And this list went around to millions and millions of people telling readers not to read our books. And it was a very scary time in our world. You were on the list.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're even talking about lists right now is so incredibly frightening. So this book came to be for all of us to unite and to have a community together, to not be alone. And it has really been a balm for so much pain. So.
And just to add to something you were saying about the list, it wasn't just Jewish authors, it was also upstanders and allies, like anyone who said, we don't support the massacre that happened on October 7th, and they happened to have been an author, they were on our list. And so it was just, it was with someone who started off with 200 followers that turned into, as Rochelle was saying, millions.
Right.
And
it was picked up by the New York Times, New York Post, New York Times Opinion. So it was getting so much,
it was
publicity
like
at
a
this
virus,
point.
really.
Yeah, it was
Literally.
a virus.
It was a virus, and not the kind you want. Actually, you don't ever want a virus, right?
Yeah.
It spreads like wildfire,
Right.
and
Right.
And then we were all trying to email Google, but has anyone tried to ever get customer service help at Google? Because if you know the key to it, let me know.
Right.
So that was one way that we were trying, and We should probably talk about the artists against
Yes.
anti-Semitism.
Right, well, that was my next
Yeah.
question. So tell us about, so in the wake of the October 7th attacks and what was happening in our world with anti-Semitism, I was in mourning because my book came out 10 days after October 7th, and I just was like, I saw my book go like, shoo! So these wonderful, amazing authors came together, and they tell us about Artists Against Anti-Semitism.
So we could
both talk
we could both talk about this. So it started off with just a group chat on Instagram, like 5 or 6 authors, like, what can we do? What can we do with our words to help fight back? And really, it was more of a focus on these kids who are on the front lines of hate in colleges. And we thought, what can we do with that? So it started with 5 or 6 of us. Pretty soon, it blossomed to 35, and then it was over 100 who joined in to do our first auction. You can talk about that.
So our first auction, within 2 weeks online, we raised over $120,000. We were so excited. All of that money went to a organization, secular, called Project Shema, which specifically goes toward educating administrators, facilitators on college campuses to basically fight hate with light. And that was on a personal level deeply. Both of my kids were in college at the time. I remember emailing our group and saying, oh my gosh, I was really worried in a way that no mother should be, right? That's supposed to be a safe space. So my daughter was a freshman and my son was a senior while we started all this. So it was so supportive and nourishing. And at the same time, we said, we can't be afraid. Because if we let fear win, then evil wins. And so we started, it wasn't enough, right? We were so proud of ourselves. This little team of 30 authors, a little engine that could and did. And then Zibby Owens, and I give her so much credit for this, she's a powerhouse and an amazing human being. She said back in June on our little founder group chat, and she said, we need to do more. Who's in? Who wants to write an essay? I said yes, Lisa said yes, KEREN said yes, Rochelle, and I'm not great at math, 71 other contributors. There's 75 of us, influencers, advocates, not just authors, fashion designers, so a really wonderfully eclectic group. She said, you have, 2 weeks to write an essay about what it's like to be Jewish. Not political, not religious, just what it's like. So I think we could all talk about snippets of what we wrote about to give you a sampling. And we became a USA Today bestseller. I have to just throw that in there because I'm so proud of our book, right? We've been on the list for 3 weeks. And it's not that title per se or that acknowledgement, but it's the fact that clearly that many people are reading it. And I really, really hope it's not just our Jewish community. I hope it's non-Jews. I hope people understand and have more empathy and compassion for what we are experiencing as authors, but also just as human beings, and hopefully bringing more kindness and compassion to the world.
And I just wanted to say, we all have various backgrounds. KEREN is not only an author and a journalist, she teaches it at Columbia. So she has really been on the front lines of that.
Yeah, I think something that's been really striking to me has been the lack of conversation that different groups of people are able to have with each other. And that's something that's been, that was the main issue I've been having at Columbia, that people just aren't willing to engage with each other in dialogue. It's become very black and white, and if you're Jewish, you're bad. If you're, it's just become something that's if you can't communicate, if you can't publish books, if books are being banned, if you're being censored, then I just don't see how we can move forward and understand each other. So to me, just getting people to be able to speak to each other, to come in dialogue, to understand each other, try to understand each other, no matter what you think, your background, I think that's the way to move forward. If you're not willing to listen to each other, that's where you just reach an impasse, and I don't see solutions when you can't have a conversation.
inspiration, because we all had a very different, and it is an eclectic group of essays. I mean, we have serious, we have funny, we have heartwarming, we have cooking, we have baking challah. So it's a full range, and I think all of us have a very different...
And we have humor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is
and
important.
Yeah.
So we all took a very different approach to our essays. So Lisa, why don't you start?
So it was kind of twofold. So I was, when my book came out, it was in May. I think I was probably the only Jewish person in the room. And then this woman comes up to me and she said, I know this isn't politically correct. I know this isn't the thing to say, but I'm gonna say it anyway. She said, the Jews, they don't give up, and I love that. I love it. Amen, Amen, sister. And so in that, and she said, and don't you give up. And so that was the fuel I needed. But what it did also, I talk about this a lot, my grandmother was my best friend. She was a Holocaust survivor, lost all of her family in Auschwitz. And so that would have been the thing she would say to me. So it was like a sign, and I needed it so badly. So my essay starts with this woman, and it moves into my grandmother, and it talks about all the things that I personally have endured as a Jewish author. But I think it comes down to this line. On October 7th, I knew what I wanted from life, but after October 7th, I knew what life wanted from me, and that for me is the big change.
I mentioned earlier my two kids and singing on the streets, and to me, I wear this necklace, a butterfly, that my grandmother gave me. She's also a survivor. My 4 grandparents are Holocaust survivors and refugees. And she was made an orphan during the war, and she was put in a boat to Palestine from Poland as a young child. She was 7 years old. And they didn't want to put her on the boat because, ironically, she didn't look Jewish. So this blonde, blue-eyed girl was insisting, this was during the Holocaust, that she's a Jew. And I thought about this story as after the day that I told my kids to, be quiet, don't sing in Hebrew so loud. It was a Hanukkah song. I thought about this, and I was looking at myself in the mirror, and I thought, my grandmother during the Holocaust wasn't hiding. She was saying she was Jewish. And I put the star on, and I thought to myself, I'm not gonna hide who I am. It's my identity. I don't agree with everything that happens in the world, but I'm a Jew, and I'm proud of being a Jew. I'm not gonna hide.
I'm gonna skip. I'm gonna go next, and then you'll go. Is that okay? So I'm gonna add a little levity. So my book came out on October 17th, and it was a very difficult time you work on a book for years, and then to have it come out into the world during a war, and it was, an interfaith relationship, so it was very difficult. And I grappled with, do I have an event? Do I not have an event? Do I celebrate? And the author community just rallied around me, and I got some really beautiful quotes about being Jewish, and I don't know if it was Linda Leugman, if it was Jenny Mollen, but one of them said, the human heart is big enough to hold both grief and joy. And I think that has a lot to do being Jewish. So I was on Instagram one day, worried, should I be posting about my book? Should I be, discussing a book, after you've poured your heart and soul into your baby? And someone reached out to me, a Miami girl down here, and she said, do you know Allison Greenberg? Because she also put a book out the same week, and she just posted on Instagram that she's really struggling, that she feels alone, and who's reading Jewish authors, and there's so much hate in the world. So I did what my Jewish parents taught me to do, And I reached out to Allison, she was a complete stranger, and I said, I know you feel alone right now. And she and I completely bonded over Book World. We've since done tons of panels about anti-Semitism. I visited her in Atlanta, and we surprised another Jewish author who was afraid about her book launch, and the reaction from people within the community, hosting a Jewish author. And I was sitting in Allison's house, and I was writing my essay, and it really just came full circle to me that this was what I was going to write about, that being Jewish now is about your community. It is about finding the light in the darkness, and Alice and I found that light in the darkness. It's being there for each other, and it's kindness, and kindness really matters right now in our world. So that was, and Allison and I ended up, so I said to Allison while I was there, I go, you know what, I'm writing this essay about how you came into my life and how we influenced each other and we were there for each other during a very difficult time. I said, we should do our essay together. So Allison and I co-wrote our essay together. It was in conversations with Allison and Rochelle.
So my essay is called We Show Up. And one of the lines, I love that you said that, Lisa, about yours. That's my favorite line here. And it should be a bumper sticker or a t-shirt. It's amazing. And what comes to me from my essay is, as Jews, we show up. And when one of us is hurting, all of us is hurting. So my essay is about, try and get this out without getting emotional. Good luck with that. My second cousin was killed in Israel in the 4th week of the war. And I found out about it. I just landed from visiting my 22-year-old son. My cousin was 22. So talk about mirrors. I land, I get a slew of text messages. I just got back from Japan visiting, leaving my son hundreds of thousands of miles away. And they said, do you know what happened? And I was absolutely broken. I couldn't breathe. My husband knew sooner and was hoping I wouldn't know that until later. So I was a mess. My uncle lives there, my 4 first cousins. People, unfortunately, I don't see a lot, but when you have a soul connection, which we do, it hurt like in a way I can't explain. So suddenly, not that it wasn't horrific enough, what was happening in our world, in our community, it got really personal, really quick. So my husband has a good friend, actually not even a friend from a business community thing we do. And he said, let me check on a guy in Israel. Let me just see how he's doing. He says to this man, I have never met him in my life. I still have never met him. And he says, Dara's cousin died. And he said immediately, when did it happen? Where does the family live? I want to pay a shiva call. And for anyone here who isn't Jewish, a shiva call is what you do when someone passes like a wake if you're Irish and you visit the family. And I said to my husband, that's really nice. I thought it was lovely, but I didn't think that would really happen. About a week later, my WhatsApp is blowing up with pictures of my cousin's artwork. My first cousin, my uncle, people that I can't get to right now, he helped me mourn. He went in uniform, he showed up. And so my essay, as heartbreaking as it is also finding joy in the sorrow, finding community and connection even when we're broken, because that's when it's most important. So I texted him back. I said, I don't know how to thank you, but I am a writer, so I'm gonna end up writing you a mini novel. Can I pick up the phone? We spoke for 2 hours. This man who I still haven't met, his kindness from across the miles, helping a stranger, helping me and my family mourn. To me, that's what being Jewish is. To me, that's at the essence of who we are. And I really hope that our essays communicate that and so much more, because there's so much misunderstanding right now, misinformation, so much you don't see in the news, things like this, about humanity and what is really, really happening at a core heart level.
It's beautiful.
I mean,
And all the many panels that you have had to be on, tell us what that's been like for you.
so as I was saying, I'm on book tour, but I'm on 2 tours, basically. And I, in a way, they complement each other, and you know, I'm grateful for it. And so there's times that I'm alone and I go out, but then, you know, when you called and said, hey, Zibby couldn't make it, can you be here? And this was supposed to be my day off with my husband, and we had this whole plan, and I said, I'm there. I'll change everything. I will be there. And I think it's just, this is what's happening. This book, with the 75 authors, there's many panels happening all over the country, and a demand like, hey, you know, can we have a panel in LA? Can we have this? I think people are needing this as Jews, because the world feels very dark, and you feel very alone. And I just want to say one other thing, that for me, the thing that, I don't know, that makes me cry is when it is exactly like showing up, but when it's like someone who could easily turn the other page but doesn't, who's not Jewish, who's an ally, who says, I don't like what I'm seeing, or you know, my grandparents taught me lessons about World War II. I'm not gonna let that happen to my friends who are Jewish. What can I do? A lot of people don't know what to do, but what can I do? And I think it is just maybe letting your Jewish friends know that, hey, I'm there.
And speaking of
So-
publishing, Rochelle had a question you'd asked me first.
Yeah.
Something just came to me, what you
Yeah,
just
no,
said.
go ahead.
So a lot of us felt so alone, and my book launched as well this year, so it's ironic. So I feel like I'm on a double tour also. But what triggered a thought is, as much as there have been a lot of loneliness, hate, just the list, I also want to acknowledge that there have been allies. At least I have experienced that. I have at least 3 or 4 non-Jewish author friends when October 7th happened. They wrote me emails. One I got on the phone with, we spoke for 3 hours. And I really want to acknowledge that, because that has to be said. Yes, it has been horrific. It has been terrifying. It has been lonely. But I do believe there are people out there with goodness, and I have experienced that. And what I would encourage is the one-on-one conversations. There's one woman I barely know. We got on the phone for 2 hours. And she said something very interesting. She said, I don't only know what to do, Dara, but is it okay that I post on social media? There was actually a fear for her, not a fear of her being, you know, blacklisted or anything like that. She literally said, is it wrong of me? It was really interesting, and I think so much of our hate in the world in general, not just in the Jewish community, comes from ignorance, comes from the not knowing. Like Keren was saying, have those tough conversations. I think that's really where the change can happen, and I really hope that our essays are a good launching point to have tough talks and really go there and say what is so.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the publishing world as far as like social media and how we've managed the anti-Semitism piece. Our publishing world is it's robust, but at the same time it's very small online. And there have been people who have spoken up, and there have been people who have been silent. There are Jewish authors who write World War II who have not said anything online, and there are romance Jewish authors who post online. But what's so troubling during this time is, does this mean we're okay?
Is that our cue?
The music.
Okay, that's okay. But what's so troubling to me, and you know, it's just a comment, we don't have to get into a long, lengthy conversation, is that there's like lists now on both sides. Like, I hate to say that, but it's like, you know, you see an author who writes World War II fiction about, you know, the Holocaust, and she doesn't speak up or speak out. And then you have someone say, well, she's a little bit shy on social media, but now there's just this expectation, and there's this judginess, and it just keeps perpetuating. And it's just, you know, I don't want to start making lists in my head. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be upset. I don't want to be disappointed. And I feel like we just all need to, like, take a chill and...
Like a universal yoga class.
Right, like it's just it's not really a very pleasant place to be in on either side, wherever you sit. So.
Thank you, everyone.
About getting the hostages back as well. That is prime time for everyone at this table, for sure. That we get the hostages back. I have friends and family who are fighting, who are, and really want to live in peace. And as you know, most of the young people who were there at the Nova Music Festival for Peace believed in coexistence. And so this is very painful, all of it. We do not support any innocents being killed. We don't support it. But we also, I don't know if it's a but it's an and. We do believe, let's bring the hostages home, and then we can look at the bigger picture. But it's not gonna stop until the hostages come home.
Anti-Semitism, so that is, we're trying to build awareness and education.
Yeah, there's no profit for any of us.
None.
By the
We're not
way,
zero this.
we all just did it. I mean, just
Pro bono.
no profit. Zero.
Is that your question, though? I'm
No,
not
I
sure.
just wanted to know the
Okay.
end result. Are you hoping to reach as a salve to the community that we're all a member of? Are you trying to reach
To
beyond that?
everyone.
Community conversation, community not just within the Jewish community,
Exactly.
but just, conversation.
Thank you for all of this. It's
Thank
really
you.
good.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much. Support of our sponsors, including the Green Family Foundation, Nicholas Children's Hospital, Amazon, the J.W. Merritt.
Hi, ladies. So, today, we have the honor of hearing and learning from these four beautiful Jewish souls and contributors to On Being Jewish Now, Reflections from Authors and Advocates. We are here with Lisa Barr, DARA LEVAN, KEREN BLANKFELD, and Rochelle Weinstein. This book gives voice to 75 contributors in total who shared their thoughts on what it means to be Jewish in a post-October 7th world. I'm reading it now, and I'm on a roller coaster of emotions and intensely highlighting the myriad lines that resonate with me deeply, such as Harper Kincaid's remark, "History doesn't repeat, but it always rhymes." Yeah. Moderating today's panel is Lisa Barr, the New York Times and USA Today bestselling author of The Goddess of Warsaw, Women on Fire, The Unbreakables, and the award-winning Fugitive Colors. Lisa served as an editor for the Jerusalem Post, managing editor of Today's Chicago Woman, managing editor of Moment magazine, and as editor-reporter for the Chicago Sun-Times. Among the highlights of her career, Lisa covered the famous handshake between late Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, the late PLO leader Yasser Arafat, and President Bill Clinton at the White House. You all remember that picture in our minds now. Lisa has been featured on Good Morning America and Today for her work as an author and journalist. Actress Sharon Stone has optioned the rights to adapt Women on Fire for film, and she is also a founding member of Artists Against Anti-Semitism, along with DARA LEVAN here today. So DARA, next, is an author, podcaster, and the founder of Every Soul Has a Story, an inclusive space in which she interviews inspiring guests. Her debut novel, It Could Be Worse, was released earlier this year. LEVAN is a graduate of Indiana University with a BA in English and earned her MS at Nova Southeastern University. She is a board member of Community Foundation of Broward and the Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital Foundation, MHF. She is also a founding member of the Circle of Friends for the Alvin Sherman Library Research Information and Technology Center at NSU. She's a former speech therapist by trade who integrates these themes into her novels. KEREN BLANKFELD is a long-form journalist with a special interest in investigative narrative nonfiction. She's a former staff writer for Forbes and has appeared in the New York Times, Reuters, the Toronto Star, and many other publications. She teaches reporting and writing at the Columbia University Graduate School of Journalism and has taught at NYU's Graduate School. She's been a guest on CNN, BBC World News, and E! Entertainment. In 2013, BLANKFELD served as a creative executive at New Regency Productions, where she worked with screenwriters and playwrights to develop material for movies and TV shows. She holds an MA in International Relations and English from Tufts University and an MS in Journalism from Columbia. BLANKFELD lives in New York with her husband and 2 sons. Rochelle B. Weinstein is the USA Today and Amazon best-selling author of 7 novels, including What You Do to Me, When We Let Go, This Is Not How It Ends, Somebody's Daughter, and Where We Fall. Weinstein spent her early years with a book, always in hand, and was raised by the likes of Sidney Sheldon and Judy Blume. A former entertainment industry executive, she splits her time between South Florida and North Carolina, and when she's not writing, she can be found sharing monthly book recommendations at NBC6 Miami, Aqua Magazine, Women's Writers, Women's Books, and teaching workshops at Nova Southeastern University, and hiking, reading, and finding the world's best nachos. I love that as a quest. So without further ado, Lisa, take it away.
So first,